All right, so fuck yes, welcome to After the Hype meeting. Fuck, I got two in a row. Brian Dressel with me as always is CHEWIE Darso.
Hi.
Emily Blake.
That went well.
And Jonathan Artesy.
Wow.
I just kind of pulled the ripcord on that one. I was like, I'm not even gonna try to finish this.
Yeah.
I don't have any excuses as to why that happened. I'm going to go with I have a kid, so I'm tired all the time. That makes sense, right? That works?
Yeah.
I can use that for everything for the next, 18 years.
And at a certain point, you're just like, the words just stop. And they're like, no.
You guys post a lot of pictures on Facebook, so I'm getting tired vicariously through you, just watching.
It is exhausting.
Yeah.
But, you get used to it.
It's pretty exhausting watching your friends get tired, too.
He has started sleeping 11 hours through the night, every night. So
nice.
I'm feeling pretty good about it.
Oh, yeah.
Man, can you imagine sleeping 11 hours a night and not feeling guilty about it?
Okay, I was like, yes, I can. I used to do it all the time.
You actually, as an adult, you feel terrible the next day.
Well, so does he when he wakes up.
He's very hungry.
Oh boy. Woo, good times. But this isn't the parenting podcast. So we'll say hi to Johnny Recher. Hi, Johnny.
Hi.
We have Johnny back on.
Yes.
I felt bad only having you on to do a battle. Usually you like diving into movies. And,
Sure.
And although you got to dive into Emmett
I dove into that one.
Yeah. And re-listening to it, you really dove into Child's Play.
Oh, yeah. No, I think it's weirdly to rehash other episodes, but I love the art form, and I think it works very well for horror. And I mean, there's a new Puppet Master movie out that I'm dying to see.
I don't understand
With
how there's
Thomas
so
Lennon.
many of those.
I mean,
because it's Nazi puppets.
There's like 10
what?
of
Are
them.
they Nazis?
Yes, they are the creation of an old gnarly Nazi dude. Wow. Yeah, so
Nazis still bringing it as villains.
Still bringing it, even in puppet form.
They're still bringing it to town.
Yeah.
Anyone,
also in real life.
Yeah.
She'd have come with
Their anniversary rally was a big dud, apparently.
Oh,
There's
yeah.
like 20 people.
Yeah. But yeah,
They were so afraid of Antifas.
Yeah, we're afraid
no.
of coming out of our homes.
Oh,
Poor Nazis.
I never actually intended to come to this thing, but I want to look good.
I forgot my tiki torch.
They didn't have any more at Home Depot.
Come on, Nazis shop at Walmart. I don't know why I'm taking a dig at Walmart, but fuck it. Why
There
not?
goes any sponsor.
yeah, there goes that sponsorship right up there.
Walmart was like, we were going to sponsor these guys.
That's
This is the episode that broke the back.
Wait, you can't be that accurate. Get out of here. Double down. All right, let's move into a where have you been doing? Johnny, would you like to go first?
Oh, sure. Two quick ones. Rewatched I just started The Alienist, which I had missed on its first run, and it's good.
Yeah?
It's kind of like Victorian SVU, which if that's your flavor, but it also tries to actually deep dig. It tries to be as woke as you can be for still being in 1890. Okay. So it's interesting. But worth a look. If you thought it looked like a boring TNT show, maybe check it out when it reappears. Cool. The other thing was, and I think kind of pursuant to what we're doing here, for our anniversary, Ray took us to Just Float in Pasadena, and I got to do a sensory deprivation tank experience.
I hear
Those
are
always
cool.
make me feel uncomfortable. The thought of it makes me uncomfortable. I
great.
don't think I'd like it.
Yeah, Ray she was a little bit more worried that she'd get claustrophobic and whatever. I was like, sign me up. Turn out the lights. Let's do this.
Did
Let's
you
get
hallucinate?
weird. I don't know if I hallucinated. I feel like I mildly disassociate. By the time the lights come back on at the end, they're on a timer. I was like, whoa, what? Huh? What? It was a very annihilation-y feeling of was that an hour? What? I remember vaguely. I was like, was I asleep? I don't think I was asleep, but
Is there a oh shit ripcord? If you do feel claustrophobia?
oh yeah, there's a big child button that you can either turn music or the lights on.
Oh, okay.
That you can just reach out and hit. But yeah, it was fun and weird.
Did Ray end up enjoying it?
Yeah, she did.
Okay.
Yeah, she had a good time. It was. I think it takes. The first one you got to float and settle, and it takes a minute. But I would do it again, definitely, and I think she would too.
Cool.
Yeah,
That's cool.
I will go. I decided since I'm a stay-at-home dad these days, I have a lot of time on my hands, which I did not expect because apparently when you're only taking care of a 2-month-old, they don't do a lot. So I've been leaving just franchises on TV and just rolling through them, and I decided to watch all of the Phantasm movies because I have never seen them before.
Oh yeah.
And a lot of people told me that this is one of the best horror franchises ever, and some of them said it's one of the worst, and I was like, all right, I'll give it a shot. And I landed somewhere in the middle. Like I think it's decent. I think.
Is it the one with like a floating ball?
Yeah, the ball that drains your brain.
Okay.
Yeah, drills your brain. It drills and drains at the same time. Actually, it's a fun franchise. Like the whole franchise exists because of that one scene in the first movie where the ball kills a guy. Because like, holy shit, that was cool. We should make more of these movies. If it wasn't for that, I don't think it would have taken off. But it was good. Like I enjoyed it. Like they definitely make a main character out of a guy who should never be a main character in anything. He's not a good actor. He's not particularly attractive, and he just
Reggie.
yeah. Oh, Reggie.
He's listening to this podcast and crying.
No, he's
I
listening
will
to the
not
podcast
sponsor
and
this podcast. This was the episode that broke it.
This guy would go.
lost Walmart
Yeah,
and
makes
Reggie."
sense.
Third movie I ever worked on in LA. I worked with Reggie.
How was
Yeah.
He was great.
he? Yeah.
Just brought the Reggie. I mean, he's not going to do much more than that, but he brought the Reggie. He definitely did.
Did he have a quad barrel shotgun?
Oh no quad barrel shotguns. He
That
he
you
played
just
like an old
threw
hippie.
to the side.
That's only in the second movie. He uses it throughout the rest of the franchise. But if I had to rank them, I'd probably go 3, 5, 1, 4, 2. I love 1, like it's the original, but there's really nothing to that movie. 3 is like the reason, and then I'll stop talking about it. 3 is where they finally had the budget that Don wanted, and he could make the movie he wanted to make. Because 2, they had the biggest budget, but Universal's like, fuck you, you're making our movie, and he was kind of ham-fisted into making a movie. But 3 is kind of where everything came together, and he's able to make something kind of cool. And then 5 is just pure fanfare bullshit nonsense, and it's if you've enjoyed it up to that point, you will keep enjoying it.
If I saw pure fanfare bullshit nonsense
Yes.
on the cover of a DVD, I would definitely buy that DVD.
I mean,
Pretty
that's
sure that's the tagline for the next Sharknado movie.
I mean, if you've enjoyed any of them, just turn on 5 because this is like, oh, this is where they just said fuck it. Like the entire movie is just fuck it. It's called Phantasm 5 Ravager, but it should just be Phantasm 5 fuck it. And it was, I enjoyed it. I would recommend them if you have nothing better to do. That's not the most. That's the highest recommendation.
everything you've said about this movie is amazing on the copy of the DVD.
Check it out if you have nothing better to do.
Fuck it.
But yeah, that's
Next up, your new business venture where you write copy for people's movies.
And
If you've got nothing else to do tonight,
check it out, maybe, or take a nap, whatever.
Brian Dressel after the hype.
The only other thing that I'll mention is Venture Brothers is back on TV, and so far the first 2 episodes have come out. Well, as of this coming out, the third one hasn't. I'm sure if it's anything as good as the first 2, this season's shaping up to be one of their best.
Oh, nice.
So good. But, listen to Venture Bros. You hear me talk about that. That's it for me.
One of the things that I did while I was away on being pregnant and having a kid was I watched all of the new Cloak and Dagger, which I really enjoyed. It takes what was a story in the 80s about 2 teenagers who got into the taken advantage of by a drug lord in New York and puts them in New Orleans, where they have been wronged by a corporation who's doing some bad things to the environment. So it's a big, more modern take, I would guess, because, the drug war was huge in the 80s and it's not so huge anymore. Because we lost. We lost bad.
Depends on which side of we you're on.
Well, everyone that doesn't want people dying of heroin.
Well, yeah, they lost bad.
Yeah, we lost real bad. But I really enjoyed it. I don't know if any of you guys at the table watched it.
I'm obsessed with Tyrone's accent because he enunciates his words in this really unusual way, and I want to just hear him keep talking all the time.
I didn't even notice his accent.
He enunciates really clearly, but in like it's beautiful.
I mean, both of the actors are very good.
Yeah,
they're very different. Where he's raised in an affluent family who, even though they are very well-to-do, still get downtrodden by the cops because they're black. He loses his brother because he's just a black guy, essentially. There's a stereo thing, but it's really dumb. And she was well-to-do until her dad died, and now her mom is a drug addict in a trailer park. And she somehow lives in a massive church where no one else knows how to get in with. That doesn't make any sense.
she crawls in through windows and
Some reason, but then other people just come in through the
that's
door. I don't get it.
I see the scenario. She just gets to the window and everyone's like, the door.
I can explain it, by the way. Comics.
This is whatever. But I really enjoyed how they dealt with the modern problems in what was very much an 80s setting for the original take on this, but they've updated it very well. And the juxtaposition between the two characters and what they want and what they need and how they can get it, how they both have severe anger issues and how they're dealing with that. And the only thing I was disappointed kind of by the ending, because it went from interesting, zombies. I was like,
They did fridge a male character, though, which was pretty
They literally
amazing.
fridged a male character.
And they were well aware of what they were doing.
Yeah.
What's his name? Kyle Rayner? Because that would be too perfect.
So I hope that in the next season, they do better with their ending and they don't just go with the zombies ending, because that is so overused.
Are they doing Marvel Zombies? Because that'd actually be kind of cool.
No, I don't want them to do that.
A man with Man-Thing. When Man-Thing shows up in season 2 of Cloak and Dagger, we're all getting on board.
But yeah, I enjoyed the show. I look forward to the second season.
Cool. Emily?
I saw 2 movies last weekend that were both great examples of why diversity behind the camera matters. BLACKKKlansman was fucking great. And it made me actually, I did a whole big post on Facebook that kind of went around and pissed off my mom. That was about like how it made me think about my ingrained prejudices and where they come from, and you know how I could do better. But it was just really, it was also just wildly entertaining and funny. But then it was one of those movies. One of my favorite things is when you're laughing, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh shit. And BLACKKKlansman was definitely one of those where you're like, ha ha ha, oh fuck, racists are still around. And then I also saw, on the complete other end of the spectrum, I saw The Spy Who Dumped Me, which was obviously written by a woman. A man could not, well, it was co-written by a male-female team, but it was directed by a woman. This movie could not have made by only men. They would never have made it, because it was about female friendship first and foremost. And it was just this really fucking fun, a little female gazy, because they got Sam from Outlander on there, and yeah, they do take his shirt off. But the girls are just like a team, and there's never a moment when there's any competition between them. They're just friends. The conflict in the story is more internal for Mila Kunis's character, and then there's all this action, and it's amazing, and it's just over the top. It's clearly made by a woman. It was directed by a woman who understands female friendships and also really fucking loves spy movies, because all of the spy movie tropes are in there, and it's like, but they kind of make fun of them, but in a way that's love. It's like, I love spy movies. So it's someone who really, really loves Bond. You can tell. She just watches a lot of James Bond movies. So I enjoyed it very, very. I enjoyed both movies. So it's a good week at the movies.
I really wanted to see that movie. I just in the poster with all the references to James Bond.
Yeah,
like,
I saw it with
the
6 other women, and so it was ridiculous. We were just like, woo, and then afterwards all talking about naked men, and it was great. That like it was a double feature. Spy Who Dumped Me and Magic Mike XXL with a bunch of women and gay men would be just perfect. Some mimosas.
Cool.
Mimosas.
John?
Cool. To kind of bridge us into the movie we're talking about, a couple of weeks ago I went on a camping trip with my family for the first time. We're not really big campers. We're indoorsmen and introverted, so we decided to step out of our comfort zone and take 2 kids, a 5-year-old and a couple-month-old, out in the woods with a bunch of other families, and it was really fun. And sort of like the movie we're going to talk about, there's a little bit of disorientation every time you wake up. Like, I'm in this strange wooded place with all these strange things. What are these? Animals? Creatures? Outdoor stuff? Very weird. I almost got ran down by a deer. We were just making some coffee in the morning, and this deer just started charging through, and it was like, quick, get the kids out of the way. This thing is on a rampage. It was weird. But yeah, it was really fun, a learning experience, and I would probably do it again, which is weird because, again, I'm an indoorsman.
It's good to branch out.
Yeah. It was very...
Branch out?
I know.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
We also got to see a lot of...
just fucking gold today.
It's on
It's
fire.
like the 3rd great pun Chewie's made this morning.
Woo!
So yeah, good times.
Nice. All right, I guess we should jump into the movie for today. A little bit before we get started on this one, I was going to read reviews, but the reviews are so fucking all over the place that I kind of find it pointless.
Shocking. That there wasn't a general consensus over this movie.
Not a general consensus, but we did have a general consensus of, again, no offense to our wonderful guest Johnny, and I love that he's here, but we try not to have people on repeatedly all the time just because, we like to keep things
Yeah,
fresh.
freshen
And-
it up
Yeah,
a little.
and fucking no one wanted to talk to us about this movie, and I find that very interesting. We reached out to a number of people, all of which went, "Oh, yeah, I'd love to be on. I love After the Hype. Great, thank you." They didn't say that, but they did to me. But it's like, great, okay, awesome. What are you talking about? Annihilation. Oh, I'm busy that day. I'm sorry. And it's like, really?
Which is weird because when I saw this, the first thing I wanted to do was talk to people.
Exactly.
About it.
Like, I thought.
Yeah.
Bring me in for the weird ones, gang.
Yeah,
I'm happy to come in and pontificate on the odd ones that are very divisive.
I believe
love
you're
it.
on for this one as well. This one kind of reminded me of Mother. Of like, it just like
Sure.
you finished it and you're like, okay, I need to talk about what the hell that just was. And I'm excited to do that today. So today we are talking Annihilation by Alex Garland. Came out earlier this year. The reviews critically were through the roof, and fan-wise they were through the ground. And we're gonna try to talk about why that was.
As I was watching it, like I couldn't believe someone actually it got made.
I can't
Like,
believe
I
Paramount
can't-
made this.
yeah.
Like that Paramount went, okay, yeah.
They tried real hard to fix it.
Yeah.
They tried so hard to.
They tried to sell it to Netflix, and Netflix was like, yeah, maybe. Nah, never mind.
Yeah.
Maybe they just. Go ahead.
I'm really sad. Well, what was the guy's name that was in charge of Paramount when this and Mother got made?
Brad Gray.
I don't want him to go because honestly, he's the only one that has been greenlighting.
He passed away.
Oh, I didn't know that. Shit.
She really didn't want me to go.
Like,
I didn't know
he's
he
no
did. He
longer with
died.
us. Yeah, he died.
didn't
of-
wanna
I
go
knew he
either.
wasn't in charge of Paramount anymore.
yeah, he's not in charge of Paramount, and he passed away.
That's just such a shame on multiple levels. One, he died. Two, no other studio is even trying to make groundbreaking films anymore.
Well, there's not a lot of money in it.
I
No.
know that's the thing.
But there's no money in Monster Trucks either, which he also greenlit.
Good
So
point.
But
Brad
he-
Gray had his ups and downs.
He had his ups and downs.
But also, that movie wouldn't have gotten made either. So, like,
true,
in a way, it's kind of groundbreaking in a different direction.
My nephew loves that movie though, like hard.
Yeah.
Well, a 4-year-old came up with it, so it makes sense.
yeah.
I mean, that takes guts within itself. A 4-year-old came up with this idea. Let's make a movie.
Yeah?
Honestly, that worked like gangbusters for me with The Fall. I loved that
Oh,
movie.
the fall's so good.
Sure.
And that was essentially co-written by that little girl because they didn't really have a tight script.
Yeah?
It's just
That sense of adventurism in
I'm
filmmaking
really
will be missed.
sad.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's a good example of how execs don't have to be the enemy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
can be great and they can do
He-
amazing things.
He was the enemy to the stockholders of Paramount, but
Right.
I think we writers and people on that side of the line have a tendency to see execs as like these evil
Yeah.
people who are always trying to kill your creativity and ruin your movie, and that's
No,
just not always the case.
he wanted you to try, but then he also wanted Michael Bay to make all the Transformers movies. Like I said, ups
But
and
that
downs.
was making them money.
That's true.
Yeah.
You gotta have
That's true.
that in
I-
order to have an Annihilation.
I can't argue with that.
And it just that him going away coupled with how everyone just wants escapism right now. There's no dramas. There's
No.
like no dramas in the theaters, and if there is one, it doesn't make money. No one really wants to watch any movies that challenge yourself unless they're still funny in some way, like
Well,
Black
the dramas
Klansman.
exist. They're just Oscar
Yeah.
baity, like,
Yeah, no,
period
usually,
pieces.
There's usually like one a year that we all agree is the good one, and we'll go see that one, and then we'll give a best picture at the end of the year. Like,
Sorry to bother you was arty as fuck. So
Yeah.
I mean that's a.
but that didn't have a major studio behind it, did it?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
I don't know. I saw it at the Lemley, so probably not.
All right, we should move into Annihilation. That's our good postmortem on Brad Gray, which
Yeah.
No, guys,
it is a bummer.
prolong this as
R.I.P.
long
Brad
as
Gray.
possible. Oh, I hate this.
Okay, Annihilation. You ready to do this, Johnny?
Speaking of mortality,
Sure. I'll say I'm probably going to just like story, not necessarily the presented chronology of the movie.
That's
I'll
probably a good
just
idea.
Well, that's one thing we needed to discuss.
Spit it all
Yeah,
out.
we'll get to it. We'll get to it.
Spit it all
But
out.
I wish you luck. Here we go. Annihilation.
Jesus.
In 30 seconds. Here we go. Go, 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 go.
Okay, Lena is a former military biology professor. Her husband is in special forces. He comes back mysteriously after being gone for a year, and then gets very sick. And then the government swoops in and takes them to a secret place where apparently he was on a trip into this thing called the Shimmer because a comet hit a lighthouse. And so she bands a team together with Dr. Ventress to go into the Shimmer to try to figure out if she can save her husband. Things are being mutated wildly. Oh, God. And no.
And you're out of
No,
time.
nope. Damn it. That was bad.
Ooh.
That was real bad.
I
That
mean,
was real bad.
I will understand that, it is a very dense movie. But
Damn it.
You still failed
I
horribly.
failed. I did so good on Mother, and I
Yeah.
just ate it
Yeah.
on that one. I practice in
I
the
think it was a
shower.
simpler story.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll give you that.
Yeah. Well,
Well, shame on you.
Well, you could have just
I'm-
said Natalie Portman is sad her husband is sick and found out she was cheating on him.
yeah.
I mean, that. Sure, you could have
That's
said
most
that.
of her motivation.
Yeah.
Still would be a
Leaves out-
failure.
leaves out a lot of story.
Oh man.
If you told me that's what this movie is about and I went to see it, I'd be so fucking
That would
pissed
be
at you.
great. I
would
think
actually be
that would
funny.
that would be a better. Yes, just I think we should start pitching horror and sci-fi movies to all of our friends like that. Like, man, it's just a really sad, like, poignant family drama.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And be like, so when the spaceship crashed into the planet in the first 10 minutes, you're like,
It's
oh,
symbolic.
oops. It is.
Yeah, The Strangers is about
For
a
the
couple that wants to
crashing
stay
of their
home for a week because they're having
relationship.
a bad night.
Internet, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I failed you. Now you have to go see the movie.
Okay, so diving into Annihilation, should we clean up the rest of the story for
Yeah.
people who haven't seen it?
Yeah.
How far did you get? I already forgot. You got
Oh, they walked into the shimmer. I got them walking into the shimmer.
Things are mutating.
And things are mutating.
Ooh. So let's clean up just a little bit of the rest of it so we can actually kind of move through this without being confusing. So as they get into the shimmer, correct me if I'm wrong. So they get in the shimmer, they start moving closer and closer to the lighthouse. As they get closer to the lighthouse, shit gets weirder and weirder.
Time gets weird.
Time gets weird.
Because the lighthouse is where the shimmer began.
Yes,
That's why they're
yes.
headed there.
Yeah, so then as they get closer, their DNA keeps mixing more and more with just everything. They find that the shimmer is just reflecting everything. So it's not just reflecting light or sound or air, it's everything. So your DNA is mixing with everything around you at all
Animal,
times.
mineral, vegetable.
And
Everything.
it really
Yeah.
seems specific to each person what kind of mixing is actually happening.
Yeah, which we'll get into that too because there's a lot of interesting things to kind of delve into this. But basically, so at the end of the story, she gets to the lighthouse where she's fine. Dr. Ventress is giving herself over to the shimmer, and then she turns kind of into a new version of the shimmer, I think, maybe, or was just eaten by it, maybe. And then the shimmer tries to overtake Natalie Portman, and Natalie Portman hands it a grenade and then runs away, but not totally unscathed and is still part of the shimmer while not being a full version of the shimmer like her husband before.
Yeah.
That's pretty much where it goes, right?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
From
Ish.
what we understand.
Yeah. From
Other people might have different ideas.
yeah, and I think that's kind of like the best place to start with this thing is like what do you guys think happened? Do you think it's as straightforward as it is? Like, as it appears on screen? Do you think it was more muddled and
Well,
hidden, or-
depending on the consensus we get, kind of changes how I feel about it. Because the way I saw it and read it was that it did take her over. She's not herself. They're both not themselves at the end, and the kind of that obvious way that they could have gone about it. I was like, what? Why did like?
So
So that's the way I saw it. But I was hoping it had been like, no, she didn't. She succeeded. Was what my hope was, and that she decided to choose to stay with the new shimmer guy.
So here's where this is how I took it, and I did do some online research. I shouldn't say I entirely came up with this on my own, but
Okay.
I kind of took what other people had said and kind of what I had seen, and this is where I ended with it, was that Oscar Isaac's character was totally the mirror image of himself. He is the shimmer, and he left the shimmer as 100% shimmer man.
Okay.
Natalie Portman went into the shimmer. She almost had the same thing happen to her, but she is able to hand a grenade and then run out, but she's still totally affected by the shimmer because she's still in there for who knows how long. So
Right.
she leaves totally affected. So when she comes out, you have the shimmer who is now only Oscar Isaac because the actual thing is gone, and he sees Natalie Portman as, oh, that is part of me. So he has basically you have the creator and the creation together again.
Okay.
That's how I took it.
I saw it as well because earlier in the story she checks her DNA, she checks her blood and
Right.
discovers that she's already changing.
Yep.
So I think that she was refracted just like everything else, and it mixed everything it touched. It didn't change them into something new. I mean, it did, but it didn't like overtake it. It changed it into
Right,
like
yeah.
a combination of things. So I think at the end she's still Natalie Portman, or she's still what's her name, Lena.
Lena, yeah.
Lena. She's still Lena, but she's also the shimmer. And I think the same thing happened to Oscar Isaac's character. I think he is still that guy, but he's also the shimmer, and they're both
Well,
like
See,
new people.
I see it that way too.
He's
Is even though
definitely a
he's the
clone.
copy,
He's
but
a
I
copy,
think
yeah.
that is part of that process because it really doesn't take form. It mimics her, and then when they touch, it starts to really pick up her characteristics when they physically touch. So I always took it, and I think holistically in my head, I like the idea that they are now both other. Like they have now both come out of the shimmer. The shimmer as an entity is gone in its original form.
Right.
And then you have these two now new life forms that are this commingling of a pure human specimen and the shimmer and now they're left together as these
Yeah.
two things that only really have each other.
I was really thinking of her as a hybrid. Was the word I was thinking. Is
Yeah.
that she's
Well, and I think like for me that boils down to the last shot of the movie where both their eyes were doing the same thing, and it was like that's where it was like, okay, so you're trying to say that she wasn't herself, or was she the fuse? Like it left that ambiguity where I think it shouldn't have been.
well, she's
I'm fine
herself,
with-
like
but she's
ambiguity.
I'm
different.
fine with the ambiguity. If it's done well, I'm always fine with it. When it's not done well, I'm like, okay, just pick a fucking side.
Because
But
I think what works about it being ambiguous is that he's not sure. He says like I
don't think so.
I
Yeah.
don't think I'm the same guy, and since he's not sure, that's okay for us to not be sure either.
But then the movie like tells us that, like it shows us that he's not the same guy.
But here's where
I
to
think-
kind of jump back to what Johnny was saying a second ago. The main reason why I think that they're different and they're not both just the same version of like he's a copy but different and she's Natalie Portman but different is because otherwise I don't think we would have spent time seeing her defeat the copy. Because he didn't. He died. Like he killed himself and the copy walked out. I don't think we would have seen her successfully.
So then the reader that the
Here's
copy.
something funny though. Here's something funny in that video. The assumption is that the person who's really out of it and who's kind of like not there at the moment is the copy, and that Kane is
yeah.
the one who's destroying himself.
Oh, okay.
But what if? Because again, they lead us a certain way. But what if the thing we see light itself on fire is the copy
I
made
was
man?
thinking that.
yeah, that is
And all
true.
of a sudden, it's like, I don't know, because Kane's just been in there soaking up rads, right?
Yeah.
Sorry to get real Fallout about it, but like, so the guy who's completely disassociated and kind of mumbling around and being like,
Well, because
like-
one of the things he says is, I think I know who I am. And he's really confused when he blows himself
He
up
also has a
about
com-
who he is.
He has a completely different voice. I don't know if you guys noticed that.
Yeah.
His accent and
It's
everything is
Southern.
completely different. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I didn't even think about that. So it
And-
very well could be that.
Correct me if I'm wrong. He left with the slick back hair. He left
Yes.
Natalie Portman.
Yes.
So then in the picture, in the video, the one behind the camera had the slick back hair. So like, yeah, I could see that read on
The
it.
only thing I would say against that is that the one that blew himself up, his hair was muddled, and his hair was really muddled in the video
Yeah.
when they're going through the guy's
Okay.
intestines.
Yeah.
So it's cool. I think what's cool about the movie is that, like, yeah, you don't know all these things, so you have to sort of figure it out. And in a way, it doesn't matter because the people who come out of there are not the people who went in.
Yeah.
They're also not the Shimmer. There's some kind of weird combination of those two things, and which are they real? Are they not real? Doesn't matter now.
And are they?
Yeah.
Is it like an Annihilation thing where it's going to keep spreading, like they're going to quote unquote infect other people?
I don't think
or
so.
Or are they just surviving?
Yeah,
Well,
I
no,
think they're just surviving.
They did say like the whole movie is about annihilation. It is about the death and deconstruction of pretty much everything. Everybody who goes into that shimmer has a death wish of some sort. Like either they have cancer or like they don't want to live anymore or their daughter has died. Like there's something that they're all depressed. Like the whole movie is very death. So it is kind of interesting that I think when they come out and they're both alive, like I think that shimmer wants to continue what it was doing. Like it might not be able to do it with the big death bubble anymore, but I don't think that they're just going to live their lives. I think when when Ventress says it wants annihilation, I think that's the only thing it wants. Like when Natalie Portman said, "Did it?" Like she was asked, "Does it want anything?" She's like, "I don't think it wanted anything." I think she's lying. It did want something. It wants to change the whole world.
Oh, see, I have a completely different take on that bit of it.
Really?
I think that Portman, I think Ventress was looking for something in a very, like, I love this thing as kind of a neo embodiment of like the Lovecraftian idea of like a cold, uncaring universe.
Sure.
I think that Portman has the right of it at the end because she's now a part of it and she understands
possible,
it.
yeah.
And when she looks at Bexham or whatever, Benedict Wong, who's amazing for the 10 minutes he's in the movie, she's like, no, it's not evil. It's not that classic space invader narrative. You know, I see it as this thing that just got this literal life form that gets hurtled through space, lands, and has a complete, almost cosmic innocence. And it's just doing what it does.
It's an experiment.
But-
It's just doing what it does. It's not mean. It's not even trying to take
Children
over.
are very
Well,
destructive.
Yeah,
I guess
it's
it's
just
kinda-
reaching
That's
out.
well
It's
put.
just reaching out for whatever it has.
It's kind
But-
of doing its thing like Cells that like Portman talks about in the beginning. Yeah.
It's a
But
process.
the movie is very adamant to make sure that we know Natalie Portman is a liar. They make that a point
They do.
time and time
it's yelled
again.
in our
Yeah.
face.
Natalie Portman's character is a liar. So they make sure that our narrator is not trustworthy. And they tell us that
Yeah.
over and over and over.
And they construct that shot where she says that Natalie Portman's a liar, where she's looking at the camera
Yeah.
specifically, where we're Natalie Portman for a
Yeah,
moment.
you are.
So they do construct that.
That's where I'm like, I don't trust anything she says to Benedict Wong because we are told the whole movie not to trust her. She is an untrustworthy narrator. So that's where, like, as much as I want to
she
believe,
withholds information. She's a cheater. She cheats on her husband, and all this stuff where she makes vows to somebody and then she doesn't either. Blah, 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 I'm losing my words.
Annihilation.
I think by the way, I think their marriage is going to be a lot better from now on.
Oh, sure.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think
I was just
the
saying.
marriage is going to be
There's
way better.
a literal part of them
Yeah,
in
yeah.
each other.
No,
Yeah.
it's going to be good.
Well, the shimmer sex will be great.
It'll
other
be
guy's-
so pretty.
that other guy's going to be like, hey, Lena, you want to get it? And she's just like, you can't offer me. What's going
Oh
on?
my god! I hope there's lens flares everywhere when they have sex. But yeah, she's established as a woman who has many regrets in her life. She withholds information from people, and then she feels really guilty about it when they find it out. Like when her husband found out that she was cheating on him, and then the other girl found out that she withheld the information that he's her husband and all this other stuff. Like, she is not a trustworthy narrator.
But I think part of that is just like, and I think what Alex Garland's maybe swinging at here is that, like, there's it's about infinite complexity. And I think that this movie, even in its structure, even mirroring something classic like Aliens, like even them, walking into the shimmer, the way that we see the shimmer, the way that we see the base, like we don't really jump into its perspective except for that one shot at the beginning to be like, look, comet, boom, and we discover it organically. But I think the whole movie is a lot about inherent complexity. The movie's about complexity. So, like, I don't, is the thing an evil space invader or is it just doing what it's supposed to? Sure. Is Natalie Portman flawed and conflicted and has, like, a weird relationship with the truth? Is she honestly seeking as a scientist? Is she honestly trying to do something noble to help her husband? Yes. Like, and I think it's all, the whole movie is about complexity and duality. And I don't see her necessarily as a liar, like hard, like this is your defining characteristic. You are a liar. I see her as a complex, conflicted person, a very round.
Yeah.
No, yeah,
like,
I'm not saying that she's defined by being a liar,
No.
but she is one.
But that does cue us in on how to approach this movie in some respects, too.
Because everything is told from her point of view. It's all from what she experienced, and if she's untrustworthy as a narrator, you kind of have to take everything with a but.
But I think she'd be the first person to admit that she's not. I mean, she may be unintentionally untrustworthy.
Yeah,
like I don't think that it's not. Again, much as the thing you can't. It's hard to characterize it as intentionally malicious.
Yeah.
I think to say she might be an untrustworthy narrator. But it might not be on purpose.
I'm not saying that it's malicious. I'm just saying you can't trust everything that
Sure.
comes out of her mouth. Yeah. That's,
It's illustrated in one way with the guy she's sleeping with and how he's saying essentially it's okay that we're doing this, and she's like, I don't think your wife would agree, and he's like, my wife has nothing to do with this, she's perfect or something.
she's blameless.
She's blameless. I'm like, it's that mentality that when someone's doing something they know is wrong, they will come up with a rational explanation and be like, no, it's okay. Like, they'll understand later or something like that.
You never want to feel like you're the bad guy.
You don't want to feel like
Yeah.
you're the bad guy. So, yes, I mean, that's the complexity of being a human, is everyone's their own hero or everyone's their own, they're right.
Well, and that's you kind of hit on something that I really appreciate with this movie is that there is no real clear-cut bad guy. Like
No,
everyone,
there isn't.
Every one of the women that goes in there has the potential, other than I'd say Shepard, has the potentiality to be the bad guy, and none of them go that way. Like they're none of them. Like it is kind of how Johnny was saying earlier. It is that duality of they're all both the good and the bad guy, and we get to see for the most part, with other than maybe Tessa Thompson, like Tessa Thompson and Shepard, are the only two that really don't have the bad edge to them. But everybody else, like, oh, they have good sides and most definitely bad sides.
I forget, what's the actress's name? The one that
Gina Rodriguez.
Gina Rodriguez.
Yeah.
I keep thinking of her as Jane. Even with her character, when she starts to lose it, I have sympathy because even when she goes down her rationale of why she's doing what she's doing, I'm like, I can kind of see this from your perspective, but you're really freaking out and you need to hold it together.
Excuse me. She loses it right from the get go. Like they're in there, and when they wake up and they've been in there for 4 days, and none of them remember being there for 4 days. She's the first one to kind of look like, I don't like this at all. And then by the time they get to, I don't remember the name of the station where they started at, and then they watch the video, and she's like, "Well, trigger the light, trigger the light." It's like, what fucking light are you looking at?
Well, she just represents a person who doesn't want complexity, essentially, in their lives. There's people that want everything to be regimented and this is reality, and she was one of those people. She couldn't handle that her reality was shifting.
Also, it's pretty normal to see
totally.
some dude's innards like twisting around like that and not be like, oh yeah, no, this makes sense.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I'm like, there's a lot of people that wouldn't be able to handle that. And that's why a lot of people that I know join the military, because they need the regiment. They need someone to be like, this is your reality. And then the world makes sense to them.
Or the church.
Or the
Yeah.
church,
Or the
yeah.
Church. Sorry to beat that drum
No.
again. Hi, welcome to the Johnny Recher Talks About Church at Movies podcast.
But it is
I
true.
apologize.
There's a lot of people that need a set list of rules, and then when those rules are challenged in a very chaotic way, which is what the Shimmer is, it's chaos. They can't process it.
Oh, you mean like a bear that can use the voice of your dead
Holy
friend?
shit, that whole
So good.
scene. Oh my
So
god,
good.
that was terrifying.
Yeah,
It was, and I appreciate it because to pull a weird reference, the ruins where the plant life mimic the sounds of the people. I was like, that's a scary thing. I hope I see more of that in movies.
yeah.
And it had a human tongue.
It
Yeah.
it
Oh,
also
yeah.
had a human skull on the side of its head. I don't know if anyone else noticed that.
Oh, yeah.
It was absorbing its victims.
That is a total nightmare bear.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Nightmare Bear.
Nightmare bear with that nightmare stare.
Yeah, oh yeah.
1v1, guys. Annihilation Bear versus Revenant Bear.
Oh god.
I will watch that.
I will
Let's do
take
it.
Revenant
Jesus
Bear.
Christ.
I will take Revenant Bear.
Revenant Bear, I understand.
No,
Revenant-
Annihilation Bear.
Like, I get Revenant Bear's
Wait, are you-
motivation. Annihilation Bear. is-
Revenant
Are we saying
Bear
who's
was
gonna
an
win or which one do you
overreactive
wanna
mother.
fight?
That's
It's
what
totally
that
going to
one
be a
was.
Game of Thronesy thing where it's
Yeah.
like
Brianna Tarth
no
has
no.
to fight the nightmare bear.
I'm trying to think of bear. The Revenant Bear thinks he's won, but the Annihilation Bear comes in with the last head crush thing.
Yeah, and they both die.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh god.
No,
And
I
then
got a
become a
whole
super
story
bear.
going on of Brianna Tarth fighting the goddamn Nightmare
And
Bear.
then
I
you
would watch
have
that.
Boo Boo, who just wants to help steal a basket.
Hey, boo boo.
He's like,
I
wait a
apologize
minute,
that I
I
derailed
don't want
this.
to be in this fight.
I apologize.
Yogi, what the fuck?
We do not belong here.
Yogi, we need to go home.
Smoking
Hey,
bear,
boo-boo,
just
I
fucking
cannot
lighting
control-
cigarettes in the background.
Hey, boo boo, I cannot control my transformation.
Ranger Smith with two heads. Just like,
That's a hell of a bear hole we fell down.
Care Bear stare.
Only thing to defeat the nightmare bear is the Care Bear stare.
And Snuggles, I just want to sell dryer sheets.
All right, I think we've got all the bears.
Then there's the Charmin Bear who wipes
Oh,
himself.
how did I forget the Charmin bear?
He comes around the tree like, what's
Taking
this?
a
That's
shit in the
Snuggles,
background.
isn't it? Isn't his name Snuggles the Charmin Bear?
I thought there was also
Snuggles
the.
is this fabric softener bear.
Fabric softener, and then
Well, there's also a Downy
Oh,
Bear.
and
There's a
then
Downy Bear, right? With the,
there's
the
so many
fabric
bears.
softener bear.
Oh, let's not forget about the honey bear. Pooh
Winnie
bear.
the Pooh.
I regret all of this.
Oh, bother.
The bear in the back of our countdown videos. Any other bears?
Stephen Colbert does not like this conversation.
Oh my god.
Oh my
Dude,
God.
can we make a
No.
what's that Japanese
Why are you pulling his shirt?
not the Hunger Games.
Battle Royale.
Battle Royale.
Yes, let's do a battle royale of bears.
Bear Battle Royale. Oh my god.
I'd have my money on the nightmare bear.
Yeah, Nightmare Bear walks in that ring, and every other bear's like, "Oh fuck, I gotta fight this
Fuck
fucking
this.
guy."
But Winnie can just make everything sticky and none of the other bears can get to him.
We're done with this tangent.
This is amazing.
Oh boy.
This is now a podcast about bears.
Right.
I mean, I would be on that show.
Oh, bother.
Let's move radically in a different direction. Let's talk performances of this movie. Let's start with the Natalie Portman. How do we think she did? People like her? Don't like her?
Oh, magic. And I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
that the fact that one of the big studio notes in this was trying to we need to make her a hero and we need to make her more relatable was one of the big Paramount things that they wanted to try to fix. I think misses the point.
Oh, yeah.
I think
Wait,
it's
they
subtle
wanted to make her less relatable?
or more relatable.
Oh.
Like they wanted to make her in a lot of the behind the
Ironically,
scenes
that would
and
have made
stuff.
her less relatable.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it's a swing and a miss.
Yeah, of just as she isn't complex, she isn't as hesitant, and I think that and again so much is on furrowed brow cam in
Yeah.
this, in a way that I think is really great, and she brings a quiet assurance to it. Like, you can see, I love the way that, and maybe it's just years of good acting training or a good coach, but like the instilled military senses of her are just there. Like, there's a noise and the gun comes up, and she just like locks into a mode, and
that conversation in the canoe,
shot.
that conversation in the canoe where she was like, I am military, she was like talking about her time in the military. I believed it because of her stature,
But
her
you
poise
also,
and all that.
you also believe her at the end where that Black Swan training came in and she did the whole dance. I would love to have seen like the behind the scenes on that, on the dance that she did with whoever was in the green suit.
Yeah.
Because it was flawless. It was really, so there was like this elegance and grace and femininity, but you also totally buy her as a soldier who can kick ass and as a scientist who understands how all this works. She brought it.
I also wonder whether or not how much was makeup and how much was her changing her body physically. Because as I'm watching the movie, particularly when you get to the end, she's gaunt.
Yeah.
Like, lines on her face are harsh. She doesn't look like she's been eating well at all. And then when you cut to...
She hasn't been eating at all. That's like the first thing she says.
She hasn't really been eating. And then you cut to her in the clean room. Her face is full and she looks healthy. I mean, she's got some wounds on her face, but she looks healthy. So it's a very stark difference between what she looks at the end in the lighthouse and then when she's sitting in the chair. I don't know if anyone else picked up on that.
It's one of those things that I will always love Alex Garland for. He does a lot of like subtle things that he doesn't call attention to. Like a lesser director.
Tattoo.
Yeah.
I love the swapping of the tattoo.
Yeah.
It's one of my
tattoo, yeah.
favorite details where it's just... And she like throws a glance at it once, and then you realize that it's just not there.
They do the glance once where she looks down and you can see it forming. Like you can see the bruise kind of like, oh, that turns into the tattoo.
Yeah,
that she had.
he uses inserts so effectively.
Yeah.
Just real nice. And I don't usually like I'm not a fan of Malick. I'm not a fan of things that are usually slow and super thoughtful and like really symbolic. So on that level, I shouldn't like it. But Alex Garland is actually one of my favorite writers, and it's because he does that, but he makes it watchable. He makes it, the pacing is never boring and you're always like thinking as you're watching it. He uses it in a way that is also in the service of story and not just about art. And I just always love the way that he does that.
And he seems to be a really good, getting back to Natalie Portman, he seems to be a really good director for actors. Like, because he gets really good performances that are different out of people. Like, you look at Alicia Vikander, and I like Alicia Vikander, but I think she was better in Ex Machina than she's been in almost anything else. And it's like, she's been very good in other things, but like... And say Natalie Portman in this. Like I've always been a fan of Natalie Portman since fucking The Professional from her forever ago. She's always been one of my favorites. But he gets a performance out of her that I don't see in other movies. Like she's very different here than she does a lot of other places. You watch this versus Jackie, and she's great in both. But this is a very like so many layers go into this character without ever calling any of them like out and forward. You can still see all of them constantly going in her head. And
there isn't
really
very
like
much exposition in this movie.
No, and that's really interesting for a movie like this, within slightly more unexperienced, not even unexperienced because he's only made 2 movies, but like different hands. There'd be a shit ton of exposition. We might have like a diary, like Blade Runner style, of like explaining what's going on. Like there's people who'd be afraid to not let the audience make those leaps, and he wasn't. And with somebody like Natalie Portman, you can see everything. Like, and she did such a good job with it.
At some point, we should just talk about the adaptation process behind this whole thing too.
Was there one?
I mean, well, the myth, right?
Yeah.
As all these things, I think, are more myth than actual story. Was he like read the book once and then wrote the screenplay based on his memory of the book? And it's funny because I had 2 friends who wanted to go see this. And one of them, he and his wife had read all the books. They loved the books. They were into like, give me the books. And then the other friend, and I was like, oh God, is this going to be like a Defiant Maze Runner situation that's just going to throw a bunch of expository bullshit at me that isn't going to pay off for 5 movies? Or is this good? And my other friend's like, nah, man, go see it. It's The Color Out of Space, the Lovecraft short story, made into a great modern movie. You'll enjoy it. And I think that Garland's like, nope. Imagine this thing is like a 10-episode Netflix show. It would just drag.
Oh, yeah.
And it would over-explain. And it would just beat to death every good thing about this movie because of the and I think the abbreviated terseness of it in the room for interpretation is really what makes this a wonderful movie.
So
like a movie.
Take for example the shimmer. There's only like in the book they go through a very long explanation about to get into the shimmer. There's only like a certain window you can go into. It's always of a certain size. There's only a certain place. So like sometimes it's really tiny. You have to crawl your way in. Sometimes it's really big and you can walk through it, but it's never big enough for a vehicle to get in. They over explain this like ad nausea to make sure that you know why they're going here and not just going down the coastline that they say they can at the end of the movie, just go straight to the lighthouse. Like they really kind of hammered into you, and the movie doesn't explain any of that. So when you later in the movie, when like, well, why don't we just keep going deeper into the shimmer and we can get out? It seems almost like a crazed idea that why would we believe this at all? And it kind of leads more to character thought and like that's what, and I love it. It was great. If they'd over-explained things, that moment wouldn't have happened.
And that's kind of why this is a good adaptation then, because it understands that it has to be a movie. This can't be a TV show. It can't run 10 hours. It's got to be succinct. It's got to be quick, and it's got to be like to the point.
Yeah,
and
the book,
not an anime.
And not an anime.
I want to point that out.
And in a book, like for those types of things, that's helpful because we're also like when we're reading a book, we're not in time with the narrative, so where we can have all these things as we build. Like, okay, so this is a very specific way to get in, and that just questions that don't matter in this movie.
Yeah,
like so it's just like a smart knowledge of like and wisdom of how to piece that together in a way that you're not giving us unneeded questions, so we can focus on the stuff that is more ambiguous.
Yeah, I think more for a movie like this, more questions left on the table, I have no problem with. Like there's some where it's like I feel like when there's some filmmakers who leave questions on the table because they don't know the answers to their questions, and that's where I go nuts.
But a question like, well, how can they get through there when a car can't get? Like that's not an important question.
No.
So cutting that off at the pass early is actually really good.
Yeah, you just ignore it, and if you made your movie right, people won't question it.
Right.
And it's like the whole like what's the Jaws quote? The oh, we can't do this shot right now because the clouds will be different. And okay, if they're looking at the clouds, we lost them. It's that entirely.
I say that about price tags at work all the time.
Yeah, that's true. That's true between you and me. Like our job is to pay attention. Our job is to pay attention to that shit so that it doesn't become an issue in the cut. Like that's so that the editor doesn't have to choose between. You know, of course, clouds are not really our responsibility.
Yeah, get the cloud back.
Get a megaphone. Hey, clouds, cut it out,
Guys, bring that cloud back. Yeah.
Back to one. Back to one.
Back to
Clouds.
one.
Reset that cloud.
Where's the cloud wrangler? And Phil Tippett comes out and is like, sorry.
The other actor I want to talk about this a lot because I love her and she doesn't do enough in my opinion is Jennifer Jason Leigh.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm. Every time she shows up, I'm like, oh, she's back, hooray! Because she keeps kind of like she just kind of comes out of the woodwork for things that she wants to do, and that's it. And it's great that you can do that, but it means we don't see her very often.
I was thinking that actually about Tessa Thompson too. She's a great picker. Like Tessa Thompson chooses roles that always say something. It's never just like, well, I need a paycheck. It always feels like she chose a role for a specific purpose.
And much like Jennifer Jason Leigh, when she does a role, it's different. Like both of these women are very good at like, oh, I'm going to chameleon into this role. Like Jennifer Jason Leigh's role in this versus say Hateful Eight, two completely different people, and you buy her in both of them.
Yeah.
And same with Tessa Thompson. You buy her in this, and then you buy her as Valkyrie. And
Which
it's
are
like,
two completely
could not be
different
more different people. And it's like
One's soft-spoken, one's a drunk.
Yeah.
And I think you have
Not
to
soft-spoken.
You have to see within these women, you have to see a spectrum.
Yeah.
You have to see a line, and it's very important for Lena to be in the middle of the spectrum. If anything, she's maybe a little bit more toward the doctor side, towards the Jennifer Jason Leigh side. But you have to have someone that's to the right of her. Yeah. Someone who's that. Talk about like withholding information. Who's just like she knows more than anybody. Yeah. And her is just hell bent on a focus. Hell or high. Like I'm getting there. You can come with me. You not come with me. We're going. And just like kind of just like a grit jaw. And I think it's important to have that person to kind of drag us along. Yeah. And it leaves Portman free. It leaves Lena free to question, to vacillate a little.
It also makes Lena not a passive character. Like by giving her like that sort of, because you could very easily make Lena the like I don't make decisions, I don't make choices, I'm just dragged along for everything character, and they did not do that with her. Like she chose to go into the shimmer. Like she was not invited. Also, and it's a little bit more subtle when Dr. Ventress actually leaves them for a bit. Natalie Portman doesn't just chase after her, be like, wait up. She stays. Like, they stay. Yeah. And that's active. Like, that's an interest. Like, usually when a bunch of people go somewhere, you can choose to just follow them, or you stay back a little bit further to stay with others. And that's a very conscious choice in, like, group dynamics and things like that. Where you go on ahead, I'll catch up. Or even more so, like, on top of that with her, it's, we're going to go forward. I think we should go back. And then she fucking cons them into going forward. Yeah. Like that was so smart. Like, yeah, I agree. We should leave. And the best way to do that is to go deeper in. And she gets them both. And it's like, Jesus. That's a smart cookie right there.
I like that dialogue, that part of dialogue.
Yeah, it's good. What haven't we hit on this? What
I want to make one complaint about this movie.
Go for it.
When Tessa Thompson is dragged underwater by a giant fucking hybrid crocodile, and then they pull her out after this long, like, oh, it's pulling me, and she's totally fine. Like, there's
I don't
her
like the fact
legs
that they
she's,
dropped
like,
their
slight limp for
weapons.
5 minutes. Yeah.
What?
That when they all go into the water to help her instead of one of them staying up there with a gun.
Oh my god, they all go into the water,
like,
but she was
you
just
all
dragged
could've just
underwater by a
died.
thing.
I mean, I don't have really a defense for it. I thought I had something.
Like,
that-
one of you should stay out.
Yeah.
One of you should fire your gun.
Yeah.
But
That's
at the end, you don't want
probably-
to shoot Tessa Thompson either.
That's
Well,
true,
wait
you
till
can't.
she comes up again and then shoot at the water.
What if she doesn't come up again?
Whatever. Well, then
But
she's
my
dead,
point is, like,
and
her
you keep
legs
going.
should be shredded.
Well, he had her bag. She was very, very.
Oh, we had her back?
Specific
Oh,
about like
okay.
it's got my bag.
It's got my backpack.
Oh,
It's
that
It
got
was
my
a
bag.
very
I couldn't-
Jurassic Park moment.
Like all her like,
All right, I'll buy it.
Yeah.
and then from
I'm
then on,
gonna
her
be
like
okay.
tent is gone too. So like,
What I did like was that I don't know if you guys had the same thought when they found the like people statues made of wood or whatever, the plant people.
Those are just plants.
those are plants and they're people.
That's what
Yeah.
I was saying. Like
Yeah.
at first when I saw it, I was like, "Oh, that's interesting." They made plants that look like people, and I was confused about what that meant. And then when she goes into the woods and you turn around and she's gone, you're like, "Oh shit, those are all people."
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you realize like all the people who didn't evacuate are all now plants, or some of them anyway.
Yeah.
I loved because the thing that visually, like in some of the trailers, that almost lost me was kind of the big glass, kind of very sci-fi looking, whatever trees at the
Yeah.
end, and I'm like, maybe that's a step too far. And then you get into the mind of the movie, and you're like, no, that's sand trying to be a tree.
Yeah.
That's sand trying. It's now has
Yeah.
plant DNA, so the sand
Yeah.
is growing. And then once I got that explanation, I like that paid off the visual for
Oh
me.
god, the production designer for this movie must have had a
Magic.
really
And the
good
greensman,
time.
oh my god, the hardest working
Yeah,
greensman.
yeah.
But I think for me, the one last thing I really wanted to hammer, which I think is really interesting, and I think we're coming into a very great era, as someone who's a huge Lovecraft fan. Like that's
Yeah.
my like, give me that flavor over just about anything. I think we're 100 years past the time when he was most prolific. You know,
Sure.
90. We're recontextualizing him, and we're being able to like filter out, because you go back, like there's a lot of misogyny and racism because he was just like this really weird New England rich dude. But those ideas that he opened up into sci-fi is like cosmic horror in the vast emptiness, and what is other, what is not, like Judeo-Christian understandings of the universe, are great ideas. And I think this, and I'm super excited that the book Lovecraft Country is great. I'm excited to see the series again, to give that into like the hands of people of color to deal with these themes. And I think what is most powerful for me about Annihilation is how beautiful and horrible it is together. Like it's not, as much as you have the intestines and the bear, there's also beauty, and there's also, and I think that like the shimmer beast that they meet at the end, once, you know, Ventress explodes and turns into, is like, I see it in my head as like, it's pretty much just like a Shoggoth, right? It's
Sure,
like
yeah.
that, but it's the most beautiful, prismatic, like, you know, you see what someone with a more terse would describe as like eyes and mouths are just these refractions and colors constantly moving and opening. And it was just like, oh man, you could take all those ideas and completely palette swap them, completely redress what is usually like that cold New England, rainy, whatever, into this like beautiful kind of like, you know, Gulf Coast swamp.
Yeah.
It's very visually appealing.
And it's
That
it's so interesting that they choose Ventress to then be the one who kind of becomes a part of it through like an all-consuming fire, visual fire, and like because of her cancer, and like how that affects and overtakes everything, and then it kind of applies outward to the shimmer and what it's doing. It's kind of the reverse of that, but like these things aren't necessarily bad. So it's like this weird mirror of her cancer too. So it was. I thought it was. I think that moment was really interesting for me to watch, just from a visual representation and everything you said, how that kind of ties into that theme.
Yeah.
when you're talking about the visuals, like I think all the choice, like they weren't just trying to make it pretty. I think it was a very specific choice to make it the way it was, because how we were talking about the shimmer being just shoved onto Earth, and it's this cosmic being that doesn't know what it's doing, where you describe a child in that way, and children are always destroying things. They're taking things apart. They're putting things together that in our rational minds don't go together. And they're very reactive to colors. Like, that's why all toys are very, very bright and stuff. So it's like, it ties into the Shimmer being a kid and trying to figure things out, because it's putting things together, reconfiguring it. It doesn't quite understand what death is either. So there's always like these skulls that, I mean, you look at that creature and it should be dead, but it's not dead. And it has all these different pieces on it. And it's pretty. Like, I think that was all very purposeful.
Yeah. And there's definitely something we said that, like, it's destructive and horrible and terrifying and gross while also being beautiful, because it's creating new things. Like, it definitely hits both of those tones throughout the whole movie.
I loved the mold and the fungus and just the moss combinations on all of the different trees and the walls and stuff, because you can't have life without destruction, which is very much in this movie, and molds and all that are life that is feeding off death. And so I'm trying to see how I'm going to say this that makes sense out of my brain. It's just very symbolic, of course, because you have the reliance essentially on death and creation on top of each other. I don't know where I'm going with this now. I lost it. I had a thought and it totally is over describing.
No, but it's good. It's all cyclical. It's a process that continues and evolves. And
well, that brings me to a question I had, because obviously there's a lot of questions in this movie. Does anybody feel like there's an answer? Is there any kind of message we're supposed to get from it, or is it simply just like putting an idea in front of us and letting us explore it?
I think that's what it mostly is, because to me that's what high art is. High art, even an artist will create it and not necessarily know what they made. So, especially for me, when I was creating my own art, a lot of it was very just reactive. I didn't know what I was making. I just wanted to put like an emotion out there. And for me, I enjoy that type of art the most. When someone will throw something or create something, and I don't need to ask them what they intended, because I will get a different message out of it. Not everyone needs to get the same message from it.
Yeah, I think this movie does very good at it wants you to ask questions. Like, and I'm sure there are questions that Alex Garland knows the answers to, but I think it'd be more important to him that we have our own answers. Yeah. There's a couple things I wanted to bring up really quick before we're done with this thing that I want to see what your guys' take on it. The first one I'll start with is, I didn't catch this the first time we saw it, and I want to see what you guys think it means. Chewie actually pointed out, when they go to the house that the bear eventually attacks them in, it's Natalie Portman's house. Mm-hmm. And even in a special feature, they talk about that. That is her house.
I picked up on it when we saw it in theaters. There's a very specific shot when you're going into her house, when she's about to repaint her bedroom. You just are set at the bottom of her stairs, just kind of looking at the stairs, and you go in the side is into the kitchen, and on the other side is a very specifically grouping of photos. They don't go up the stairwell; they're at the bottom of the stairwell. And then when you get into the bear house, it's the same stairwell, and then you just have one photo on the wall in the same spot that all the other ones were.
And they do a moment with Natalie Portman where she walks in and goes, huh? And when you know it and you watch the scene over again, it's like, oh shit, that is her house.
Do you think it pulls from memory? Because he would have had a memory of that house as well as she would.
Or
so
it could just be that they've been in that shimmer for so long that it overtook her house. Because they weren't too far. She wasn't too far away from the shimmer.
I think she was far enough away.
I can't think that it I can't think that it would. Now I want to rewatch it again.
Yeah, I gotta rewatch that scene again.
You've always been here.
Yeah. But because I trust inherently, I am legally bound, but I also inherently trust the eyes of a good local 44 member. So
I mean, because the shot's even at the same angle and everything.
But I can't think that it can be her actual house, because they went from far enough outside of the shimmer to inside of the shimmer that I don't think that it can be literally her house. I think maybe it is. I would be more wanting to think that the shimmer is starting to mold and move.
That's kind of what I took it as.
Yeah.
I mean, it cloned him.
Yeah.
Or whatever it did. It's reasonable to think it might also access memories, and then because he clearly has memories of her.
Yeah.
He says he saw her like in the room.
So it would make sense that, like, it can build everything else. It could probably build a house. So I thought that was kind of interesting.
And when he reemerges, I assume he emerges in the house. Like when he shows up again, he just walks into the house and there he is. I feel like he went directly from the Shimmer to the house somehow.
That's kind of what it
Could
felt
be
like.
because when the first shot you see of him is at the base of those stairs, and he looks at the wall of photos, and then he looks up the stairs, and you don't even see him start to walk up the stairs. You start to see him from her perspective coming up the stairs, or actually behind her, and just I don't know. I think it was just one of those where like they're very tied to each other, and it's a very specific choice to have the movement and then the shot of those stairs.
Yeah.
So then that actually would tie better into the fact that, I mean, when they're fighting when Natalie Portman is kind of tussling with the other, they both take aspects of each other. So it doesn't matter necessarily, perhaps, then that she's herself at the end, or she won, or whoever won, because either way there was enough of an exchange between the two of them that she's essentially both.
That's
Yeah.
what I said.
Yeah.
But it's interesting to have that call to that, which would make me like, because I missed that, then I wasn't getting that.
Yeah.
So with that in mind, I would go more to what you said about her.
And we talked about the tattoo, but we didn't really talk about how the tattoo that she got came from
Gina Rodriguez.
Anya.
Gina Rodriguez, Anya. Because to me, that's also interesting that she is absorbing traits from the other women.
Oh, yeah.
That's a good
essentially.
point, yeah.
Yeah. The other thing I wanted to ask before we move into quotes on this thing is, what did you guys think the deer meant? Because apparently the internet exploded with what the hell did the deer meant.
The deer?
Yeah, the two deer that moved entirely in unison.
Pretty.
I think again, I think it's a systematic like sharing of things. I think it again, like neither of those deer were necessarily good or bad.
Right.
I think that you see them moving in sync almost to kind of set up that I think it's just another hammer on the head of the whole duality
Yep.
that you see then with the Shimmer creating copies. I don't think one's like a real deer and one's like a Shimmer deer. I think at some point they're just both a byproduct of this process. And I think for me that was really just a moment to really as a director to be like, this ain't all bad. This isn't all crocodiles and intestine
so much
snakes.
of what was in this world was gorgeous.
Yeah, and I think that it's the most stark. I mean, you see a lot of flora that's very gorgeous and colorful, and I think that they don't attack. They're not malicious. They're just a byproduct of the environment, and they're gorgeous. And I think we're just supposed to absorb that without going
me,
like,
Do you think it had anything to do with Shepard? Because that's where apparently a lot of people thought like the deer were part Shepard, because Shepard had just died near there.
That's like
where-
a reuniting with her, like a thematic reuniting with her kid.
Maybe that's
Maybe.
like that's where
But
people
that's
start
even
going,
kind of
like,
a stretch for me.
way too far. And
For
I'm like,
me,
I don't know.
I just viewed them as another representation of the duality of life and death.
Yeah.
Because one of the deer, again, looked very healthy with blooms on his or her horns. And then the other deer was dirty, had a skeletal face, and the antlers looked like dead wood. Like, very much life succinct with death and how you can't exist without each other. To me, that's what that symbolizes.
So then, like a kind of a good foreshadowing of the last shot. Then them
Yeah.
together, them kind of forming together in sync, hugging,
And
and
in a-
having that aspects of life and death
In
together.
a way, that's one of the more interesting things about this movie is it very much like it does have the death, it does have like the attack from the bear and the giant crocodile, whatever, but it also has this feeling that everything is part of a whole and it's all blending together. I mean, and Tessa Thompson's reaction to just sort of give up and join it and become part of it is actually tragic, but also really beautiful. She's sort of just like, this is what she wants. She chooses to become part of it and become a plant, and that makes her happy.
And for her character being a cutter, to me, that it was an exceptionally beautiful moment. Because when you are self-destructive in that manner, there's so much turmoil inside of you that you're trying to feel emotions, and you are physically destroying yourself in some form. And then she has sprouts coming out of her scars
Into something beautiful.
beautiful scars. And then she goes and it's like letting all of that tension and self-hatred or whatever was driving you to mutilate yourself, just letting it go into absolution.
She's become something beautiful that is part of something.
And she
she's
doesn't
not alone.
have to fight it.
Yeah.
She'll
never be alone
it was
again. She's
wonderful.
part of a
Yeah.
whole system that is all connected.
and then it all burns down.
And then it all burns down.
She could, I mean, Could be fine.
She
Like
could be
all that flora could still be there.
We don't know. That's true. I mean, we did see a lot of it burn, but who knows? Who knows?
Yeah.
Alex Garland knows. Anyhow,
Or does he?
I was going to say the Shadow knows, but nobody gets that reference
I
anymore.
do. I love
Thank
the
you.
shadow.
You mean that Alec Baldwin movie?
I saved
No, I
your
don't.
I saved your life, Roy Tan. Now it belongs to me.
All right, let's move into quotes on this thing. I'm going to go first because I have a bad feeling someone's going to steal mine if I don't. Mine is actually a Tessa Thompson line, and it comes later in the movie in a scene that we were literally just talking about. It's where she's... Jennifer Jason Leigh has ran off to go to the lighthouse. Natalie Portman has woken up and found Tessa Thompson sitting there with now things growing out of her. And she looks at her, and after a little bit of conversation, she goes, Ventress wants to face it. You want to fight it. I don't think I want either of those things. And then she stands up and just walks away. And it is a beautiful moment, and it says so much about her character. And it's one of the characters that I thought got like the least amount of screen time and I thought deserved more. And then I got to that scene. I'm like, oh, no, you were just waiting for this moment. Like, it worked perfectly. I love that moment.
Yeah.
Ooh, I'll go. I picked one out of the... I mean, I struggled with the kind of in medias res, like, interview segments, the Rashomon of it all.
Sure.
But, like, again, I think Benedict Wong helped elevate that a bit, and a good performance by Portman.
Yep.
And this is from one of those moments towards the middle. And I think really kind of just captures really what I think is lovely about this movie. And she's talking about the mutations, and Lomax just kind of looks at her and goes, "It was nightmarish?" And Lena responds, "Not always. Sometimes it was beautiful." And I think that leads us right into kind of, we see the deer and stuff after that.
Yeah.
And I think really that's the whole idea of this movie, is like, maybe it's not bad, maybe it's not evil, maybe it's just a thing.
Yeah, maybe it's just different.
And maybe it's just different. And I think that her line read on that, I think really just kind of like, here's a big blinking line of like, hey guys, this is what this movie's about.
Yeah.
Right here.
That works.
Yeah.
All right, I got one. It's from Dr. Ventress, and it's her speech about the whole we all self-destruct.
Fuck you. That's the one I had. I only wrote one down.
Well, it's the one that like affects me the most, because they're talking about the difference between self-destruction and suicide. And as someone who has dealt with that in the past, like, it was a thoughtful thing, and kind of was like, oh, okay, my ears perked up. But the one I want to focus on specifically is all of us self-destruct in some way in some part of our lives. We drink, we smoke, we destabilize the good job, a happy marriage. But these aren't decisions; they're impulses. In fact, you're probably better able to you're better able to deal with that. And it was just the way she delivered it. I think that performance, the thought process behind it, and just that distinction was important to me as I watched it.
Nice.
I was also like, oh, you're doing such a good psychologist dig at her right now, where you know what she did.
Yeah.
I'll piggyback off that since mine is from the same speech, but technically not the same words.
That works.
So, isn't self-destruction words? Isn't self-destruction programmed into us, coded into each cell? Because when she asked that question, I was just like, is it? And then I started paying a lot of attention to the rest of the movie, and man, a lot of people fucking kill themselves in this movie, one way or another.
Yeah.
They self-destruct very much on purpose. So I was like, now I'm looking around like, whoa, do we all self-destruct? Is that true?
And Lena says at the beginning, like, if we could fix that one thing in our cells, we'd all live forever. That the cells would just replicate forever and ever and ever. She says that to Kane.
We
very
didn't
early
even
in the
talk
movie.
about Henrietta Lacks, guys.
Who's that?
She's reading her book.
Oh.
We don't need to go down the rabbit hole right now. We've already gone down a bear hole. We're not going down this rabbit hole.
Bear hole. That sounds
If
like
you
a sex
don't know
thing.
who
Doesn't it?
Henrietta Lacks is, it is a very important thing, not just in science and medicine, but also civil rights. There's so much about that woman
sure,
and what
yeah.
happened to her and all the things that happened afterwards.
And important to this movie. She's
Yes,
reading
and
her book
important
at
to
one
this movie.
Fuck you, science.
My quote also comes from Dr. Ventress. One, I really enjoyed the fact that she was Dr. Ventress, because Ventress is a character in Star Wars, if no one else remembered that, who's really awesome. But I liked this line of, we have many theories, few facts, which I think really speaks for this film and for how everyone, again, like how I like high art, where you're not really presented with very many facts. You have to come up with theories and your own emotions and try to figure it out for yourself.
Nice. Review system for today. It's going to be movies that have left you with more questions than answers. So that will be subjective to you. Yeah. I'll go first because, I thought of this, so I'm cheating.
Of course.
I'm going with Blade Runner. The first time I saw Blade Runner, I was left with that movie going, what the hell was that? I loved it, but I was so itty-bitty, and I didn't know what the hell I was watching, and I didn't really understand any of it, but I just remember watching the whole thing going, that was a beautiful nightmare, and I don't understand anything that just happened, but I will want to watch that movie as many times as possible, much like I was left with this one.
There's so many movies that are bad that I have questions about, but I like this movie, so I'm gonna go with Solaris.
Okay.
Because I was just
French
like,
or Clooney?
I haven't seen the French one, so
Okay.
so because I enjoyed that movie and I liked a lot of what happened, but at the end I was just like, wait, what? So yeah, and it was very artsy, you know.
I'm not sure how it holds up. I haven't watched it in a while, but I'll go ahead and just swing at the low-hanging fruit of Donnie Darko.
Okay.
That one hit me in college, like right at the right time, where I saw what they were trying to do with like God and life and death, and I think all these things is like, this is a big hammer for me, and I think I said it in Mother, and I probably could have said it in Emma Daughter as well, but like myth and the power of myth to tell these stories and to ruminate on these things about life and death, and I think this does a great job of like a little bit of weird, a little bit of, Donnie Darko's the much more low-key version of this, but a little bit of weird, a little bit of a visual that you're not sure what you're looking at. Something exciting, I think, is a really great way to, it's the spoonful of sugar to a very deep philosophical conversation.
Yeah.
The only picture I took of a cosplayer at Comic-Con this year was someone who cosplayed as the rabbit.
Fantastic.
I got my movie, which I'm sure none of you will like. Super Mario Brothers.
Boo.
What the fuck?
Exactly.
I was going to say boo no matter what you said, but now I really
Emily.
mean boo.
Please explain.
Super Mario Brothers, guys. A movie where you were watching it and you're like, what?
How?
How?
Why?
What brought you to that decision? Why did you choose that aesthetic? Where is this going? Oh my God. And for me, at the end of it, I was like, that was a wonderful roller coaster. A lot of people hated it. I don't agree with them. I think there's a lot in this movie that other people don't appreciate. That is my feelings towards Annihilation.
I'm going to go on a limb and say you are the only person in the world who has compared Annihilation to Super Mario.
Oh, definitely. But truly, like, talk about divisive, guys.
I'm not sure if I'd be proud of that.
Well, you don't think I didn't like Super Mario Brothers either? I think it's pretty awesome.
One of my greatest moments in my life is when I told, his name just left my brain, John Leguizamo, that I love that movie, and he laughed at me.
Amazing.
So I'm gonna go with Eternal Sunshine, The Spotless Mind, in terms of just in its headspace and kind of dealing with like internal issues of the main characters and stuff like that. But I also really liked Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, and I like this movie. A lot of other comparisons I thought didn't give Annihilation enough credit, and after talking about it with you guys, I think that's my review of it. This movie, Eternal Sunshine. That's how I felt. I like them both quite a bit.
Perfect.
Now, yeah.
All right. I think we should do a round of plugs and get out of this thing. My plug, as always, Friendship Brothers Podcast. Check us out. Johnny?
Oh, man. Just because, back to back. Peppermint, September 7th. Go see it. It's out in the theaters.
Posters.
I watched the trailer, and I was like, oh, it's like Lady Punisher.
Yeah. And it's now on my, it's funny because it's just on my Facebook feed now.
Yeah.
Which is just it's a very weird meta kind of feeling of it just pops up.
Nice.
Yeah. And just at Johnny Recher, Recher, anywhere that counts. And yeah.
Nice. John, anything to plug?
Just keep rate and review us if you haven't. Read our articles and our blogs and things like that. And yeah.
Nice. Emily?
I mean, it's almost Halloween, guys. I can make you a costume. EmilyBlakeSews.com.
She'll be very excited about it.
I will be. No, I'm just like, I say this every week and nobody ever takes me up on it. But I have time and a sewing studio and fabric and like a needle. So put me to work.
I feel that you have more than one needle.
I got one.
My God, but if it was just the one, what a wonderful
is a
needle that would
magic
be.
one. That works.
It's a good
when it
one.
breaks, I have to tape it together with duct tape.
It's a plus 10 needle of sewing.
Yeah, look, I had to make a pact with an unknowable deity for this needle. Somebody
through
make
any
use of it,
fabric.
goddammit.
Amazing.
I will just plug I am back to work at Superstore. So that
Yeah.
is coming on 10/4, I believe, October 4th.
10-4.
Knew someone was gonna do it.
And it's all about babies, guys. Because I had a baby. The show's got a lot of babies in it. I never thought my life was going to be so connected to babies. So now it is.
You're a baby person
I'm
now.
a baby person now.
Yep.
Life is interesting.
Life is babies.
So I will plug
babies.
life. I'm plugging life, guys. Because you never know what
Live
it's
it.
going to do to you.
That's
what you're
very
going to get.
fitting for Annihilation.
Yeah.
It is. So bye.
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 Bye.